Up at about 7:30 a.m. to get ready for our tiny wildlife safari drive. Wander down to get some breakfast. It's cold and they have the fire lit. I know it's May and autumn, but this is geographically the tropics. Today the fog is lurking offshore, so it's sunny but cool. Good for an excursion into the desert. Our conveyance is a Land Rover Defender converted into a small bus. There are some other groups out in Land Cruiser troop carriers. How ordinary. Our start point is just across the Swakopmund River from town. I should mention that the name Swakopmund means mouth of the Swakop because that's where it is. Angela's cousin asked me about camels in the Namib Desert. I said I didn't think there were any. Turns out I was wrong. You can get camel rides. There are no wild camels in sub-Saharan Africa, including Namibia. There are lots of signs of critters about. They would either be nocturnal or move about in the dawn or dusk. Especially in summer, the open desert would not be a good place for them. The first thing we find is this perengues or desert sidewinding adder. The guide tracked it by its distinctive tracks in the sand. It was buried with only its eyes showing. I took some pictures, but you couldn't see anything of it. It's quite small, only about 30 centimetres long, but venomous, so care's required. It's cold and a bit grumpy, so the guide helps it start a hole so it can hide again.
Innerhalb von 30 Sekunden hat die sich eingeraubt. Das ist wie ein Bauchtanz. Das ist ein einziges Muskelpaket. Die klebt sich schnell ein. Vielleicht können wir den Sand ein bisschen auflockern hier. Können wir sie dazu animieren.
The next savage beast is this Namib web-footed gecko. Its feet help it run over the loose sand and its huge eyes allow it to hunt in the dark. It probably can't see much in the daylight, so it digs its way under the firm surface sand to wait for night. It might seem a bit cruel harassing these animals, but the point is that the desert is not empty. It's valuable real estate for all the small animals that live there, and by disturbing a few so people can see them, it raises awareness that they were there even if you can't see them.
She starts digging first with the front feet, erst mit den Vorderfüßen. She schiebt den Sand ab, she's pushing back the sand. And then with the hind legs even further. And then she sits in a bubble of air, and this bubble she takes deeper and deeper. It was very quick.
Wish I could dig a hole that fast.
Very effective.
Do they make the hole straight or do they follow
They go a little bit downward,
Yes.
but mostly they turn left or right.
Okay.
And sometimes they just spiral down.
Okay.
Then the guide finds a legless lizard. I don't know how he does it. Keen eyes. 1 minute we're walking along and then whoosh, he's gone. Check out the speed that this thing can burrow into the sand.
You will never see it like this.
Whoosh,
Yes, you do.
gone.
No.
It's very, very fast.
I'll pretend to be dead. Into the bus and off to another location. Note that we stick to the existing wheel tracks and don't just drive anywhere. This is a nature reserve and public off-roading is not permitted. There is evidently plenty of other areas where you can go and get bogged as you please.
See those tracks hier? Ja. That is from that legless lizard. Das ist von dieser beinlosen Eidechse.
We spot this guy warming up on the sand. He gets grabbed. The big hind feet help them run on the sand and boy are they fast. We discovered that after it warmed up in the guide's hands, when he put it down, whoosh, it was gone. Off we go again, cruising along to see what we can find and just taking in the scene. There are no big animals here, there's no fresh water for them. Away from the river there is not even any vegetation, so there might be insects and the things that hunt them. There is one exception. Out on the flatter and rocky areas there are chameleons, few and far between. We didn't find one, but fear not, we brought our own. It turns out there is a chameleon rescue brigade in town that grab them off the road or if they get found where they're in danger and give them to guides to put back into the wild. We have a fairly large female. She's much bigger than the chameleon we saw in Uganda, probably 30 centimetres, a foot long or so, maybe a bit bigger. She flattens herself out to warm up in the morning sun, staying very dark to maximise the absorption. She gets served a few mealworms for breakfast to see her through the day.
These spikes on the back, the spine, that's like a fingerprint for each chameleon. She's looking for the worms. She sits still.
The mealworm's making a break for it. Yummy.
And these chameleons can eat those beetles we saw, those black beetles for example. They crush the beetles.
She ends up parking herself under a bush to get oriented and we leave her alone to get on with her day. There are areas where the dunes have this dark coating. The wind sorts the different minerals in this sand and this dark top coat is magnetite, a type of magnetic iron. A quick wave of a magnet picks up quite a lot from a very small area. It does weird things in your hand under the influence of the magnet. As we make our way through the dunes, we can see the plain we crossed yesterday and the mountains we'll be heading for tomorrow. In the other direction we can see the Atlantic Ocean and the fog lurking offshore. The bus gets parked on a flat bit and we get out and stroll up one of the lower dunes to enjoy the view. It's still very cool, but the sun is super bright, reminding us that we are in the tropics. From our viewpoint, we can see a couple of the other tours trundling around through the dunes. Here's a better view of the fog. This coast is famous for it. It's caused by the warm air sitting above the cold, cold Atlantic. Cold because water from the Southern Ocean is carried north by the Benguela Current. As a result, this area is rich in fish, especially anchovies and everything that lives on them. Fishing is good along this coast, but there are no tropical species, all cold water fish. Here you can see the fog toying with a mobile oil rig that's parked offshore. After a few hours, our tour is over. We hit the main road somewhere between Walvis Bay and Swakopmund and head back to town. Here we are crossing over the Swakop River. Note the holiday chalets on the left here. I think this would be a popular spot in summer with the people from Windhoek, which is only 360 kilometres away along a paved highway. We for sure took the long way to get here. The rest of the day we spent getting washing done, going to the supermarket to restock our supplies, etc. We won't be in another big town for a week or so we need to stock up while we're here. Fill up our fuel as well. We haven't topped up since ours. It's the 24th of May today and we're off to our next camp at a mountain called Spitzkoppe, which translates to Pointed Dome. It has the nickname of the Matterhorn of Namibia. On our way we're going to take a big detour to see the seal colony at Cape Cross. The total distance for the day is about 300 kilometres. As we drive north we can look back and see Swakopmund in the ever-present fog. There are a couple of people fishing off the beach here. One of the main catches is called cob. Not cod, K-O-B, cob. There are evidently a couple of types and include one we are familiar with in Western Australia which we call mulloway. Along the road we see these tables with rock salt specimens. The salt occurs locally. There are quite a few salt extraction ponds along the coast here. People find good specimens and put them on these tables to sell them. The number is the price in Namibian dollars. The $30 specimen here would set you back about $2.50 Australian. The money goes in the honesty jar and I suppose the seller comes and checks at the end of the day. Much as I like rock collecting, I didn't want to add a large lump of fragile salt to our luggage, so I reluctantly left it. The scenery along the main road is stark and beautiful. No dunes, but this is still the Namib Desert. The landscape at Cape Cross reminds you of the lack of water in spite of the ever-present fog. Not a plant in sight. This is the lodge. Quite nice accommodation for tourists and fishers. Apart from the ranger station, there's nothing else here. Apart from the seals, that is. Once you pay the park entry and drive the short distance to the seal colony, the first thing that you notice is the distinctly fishy smell. It's so strong it makes your tongue furry. I think it could strip the paint off a car. Well, we paid our money, so out we get. There are seals everywhere. The walkways have gates to keep the seals out, otherwise they would just take over. There are not dozens or hundreds of Cape fur seals in this colony. There must be thousands. The noise and the smell are intense. There are also huge numbers of seabirds, cormorants, gulls, stuff I have no idea what it even is, but the sheer number of seals on the shore and in the water is staggering. This is the Cape Cross seal colony, and the biggest thing that you notice is not so much the noise, it's the smell. It pongs of seal poo.
Sorry about the dodgy pan. There's one or two seals here.
Every now and then some seals would surf away to the shore, but I couldn't get them on camera doing it. Lots of social interactions and just plain chilling both in and out of the water. There are quite a few young pups as well. They're ultra cute. Not all of them make it. There were several dead pups near the walkways, a snack for some of the birds. We then backtracked down to Hentiesbaai and on to the D1918 to head inland to the Spitzkoppe. Don't have any pictures of the trip. We both thought we took pictures, but we can't find them if we did. Sorry. This region is dotted with these large Inselbergs or island mountains, a bit like Mount Augustus in Western Australia. The Spitzkoppe is a group of these, and our campsite is to one side in a smaller range on a private property, here. Compared to the coast, the scenery here is quite lush, with the occasional bush here and there. We set up camp in the shelter of one of the rocks. It's a spectacular place, but in my opinion the most basic campsite we had on the trip, and not cheap either. It's a pretty popular destination, but not overcrowded. There were 2 big campsites where we were, but we were the only people there. As the darkness drew in, we made some dinner and headed off upstairs to bed. Tomorrow we're off to another mountain, the Brandberg. This stands at 2,500 metres and is quite a landmark. We'll be deluxing there in a semi-tent accommodation. It's in an area known for its elephants, so maybe we'll get to see one if it's not hiding under a bush. That's for next time. Thanks for watching.